Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. May was kind of a crazy month for me. There were a bunch of people in Chicago for BEA and BookCon, and so I spent a significant portion of my month hanging out with people, which was really fantastic. In terms of the videos that I made this month, I put up my spring book haul, which has a bunch of books that I got prior to BEA and BookCon, so all of those books are going to be going into my summer book haul. But yeah, if you haven't checked out my spring book haul, that's there. And then the rest of the month I ended up putting up book reviews. The first one was The Queen of the Night by Alexander Chee, which was a super buzzy book of the beginning of the year, so I ended up reading it and I had a lot of complex thoughts about it, so you can check out that review. Then I did a review of Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera, which was so fantastic. It was probably my favorite read of April, so I definitely had to make a review of it. If you haven't checked out that review, I highly recommend it. Well, I highly recommend the book. You can check out the review if you like, but I would recommend just reading the book. I mean, I don't really care if you watch the review or not. I would rather you read the book. And then this past Friday, I did a review of The Story of My Teeth by Valeria Lucielli, which was a super unique book, really interesting. So check that out as well if you're interested in that book. So like I said earlier, May was a super just unique month for me because there was so much stuff going on. I literally didn't finish a book for the first almost 3 weeks of the month. Like, there was a point where I thought I was only going to get through one book this entire month, which I was going to be fine with, but I was just like, this is weird. I just don't have time to read right now. But I ended up finishing 4 books within the month. I might finish a 5th depending on how my reading goes on Monday, but we'll get to that in a minute. In terms of the books I finished, the first book that I finished was The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is subtitled An Intimate History of the Gene. So this is a book all about our genes, like DNA and things like that. Siddhartha Mukherjee wrote the book The Emperor of All Maladies, which was the biography of cancer, and so I was very excited about this one as well. I didn't love it quite as much as Emperor of All Maladies. I think it's because I knew more about this topic than I did about cancer, so this wasn't as much of a surprise for me or as delightful, but I still think that Siddhartha Mukherjee takes a really unique point of view on this whole topic, and he also makes this really readable. The reason why I knew so much about this before is because I learned it in like science classes and things like that, and so the way that it's presented here is definitely not like a science class. He does a really great job of talking about all these different people who have played important roles in this world of genealogy. He talks about Mendel and Darwin, obviously, but he also talks about how things were back in like Plato's day and how things have evolved and how our point of views have evolved and how there are aspects of genealogy that are just super biased against women and people of color. And he also interweaves his own personal narrative a little bit, or his own family history a little bit. In his family there is a history of mental illness that runs through it, and so he talks about that a little bit and how his family has dealt with knowing that there is this sort of broken gene almost running through their family, and they don't know when or where or how it'll show up, but they know that eventually it does show up and different people suffer from it, and how everyone in their family is sort of concerned because they never know if they're going to be the one who suffers from it. So yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I highly recommend it if you are interested in nonfiction. It is a bigger book. I think it's around 600 or 700 pages. I read it as an ebook, obviously, but I think it's just really fascinating, and if you like The Emperor of All Maladies, this one is definitely worth picking up as well. The next book that I finished this month was one of the best books that I've read all year, and that's Homegoing by Ya Gyasi. This book actually comes out on June 6th, and I'm going to be doing a full review of it on my channel because it is deserving. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. It follows basically this family over the course of like 100 years. The story starts off in Ghana, and then you follow basically down this family line generation by generation with each chapter, and so you get to see how the people who stay in Ghana, what their lives are like, and the people who are enslaved and taken to America, what their family ends up being like. And then it's just really interesting because you get to sort of compare and contrast what it's like in the United States compared to what it's like for them in Ghana, and how, you know, things might have turned out differently if some different choices were made and things like that. It's so good. I highly recommend it. You know, I don't give out 5-star ratings very often. It's like a couple of times a year, and so this is my second 5-star book of the year. I cannot recommend it highly enough. There's a link in the description so you can check out more about it if you are interested, but a full review is coming in the month of June. Pick it up, you guys. It's going to be so good. The next book that I finished was The Sympathizer by Viet-Thanh Nguyen. I probably mispronounced that, and I am so sorry. This book won the Pulitzer Prize, and after it won the Pulitzer, I ended up picking up an ebook version of it from the library. This book was really slow going for me, and I'll get to that in a second, but because it was slow going for me but I was also still enjoying it, I ended up picking up a physical copy because I knew I wasn't going to finish it in the time that I had to read it. It took me like a month to read this book, which I want to say off the bat is not a diss of this book itself. This book is really intense, and so I couldn't read more than like a chapter or two a day because I would like feel the pressure like on my chest, like for real. It was hard for me to read this book. This book takes place in the 1970s, and you are following this man who is half Vietnamese, half French, and he becomes a communist sleeper agent in the United States after the Vietnam War has finished. So there's a lot of really interesting things that are happening here. It's a war novel because it discusses just all of the effects that the Vietnam War had on Vietnamese people as well as on American people. It's a little bit of a spy novel because this guy is a sleeper agent. He is constantly on the edge because he has to play basically a double role. He's a communist, but he also is in the United States, so he has to act like he is anti-communism, obviously. He doesn't know everyone that he can trust. There are people who he's quote-unquote friends with who are actually his direct enemies, and he's forced to get close to and share things with them, and he's constantly trying to show them without being obvious that he's not a communist when he's really a communist. It's really, really interesting. So there's that whole part of the story. And then there's this whole other layer of the story that's all about him being half Vietnamese and half French, how in Vietnam he never felt like he truly belonged because he wasn't a full Vietnamese person. His father was like a priest who impregnated his mother, and then the father's obviously out of the picture and his mother's forced to just raise him, and he always realized that he was different. And then he comes to the United States and he's still treated like he's different because he's half Vietnamese, and people don't really care if you are half or full. Here in the United States, you are just other if you are not white. In the end, I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I will say that I felt like this book was a little bit too long. There is a slight divergent storyline that happens in here that has to deal with a movie that's made, which I found out after reading a couple other reviews is based on the creation of Apocalypse Now. Basically, in here there's a storyline where a guy is making a movie about the Vietnam War, and the way that he portrays Vietnamese people is like really horrific, as it usually is. And then the main character of the book ends up becoming sort of like a consultant for the film and trying to make it so that way there are actually, first he's just trying to get actual Vietnamese people in the movie who have actual lines, but in the end it doesn't really help that much because the Vietnamese people are still shown really, really horribly by the time the movie ends up getting made. It's a really interesting storyline, and I really like that I read it because he has such poignant commentary on Hollywood and the way that they treat people of color and the way that they like even cover wars and things like that. But I think that it just doesn't fit in this book. It felt like such a like separate story. Like I felt like that should have been a book in and of itself, and then the stuff with the war and the spies and all of that stuff felt like a book unto itself. I did dock it from being a 4-star book just because like that whole section, while it was good, it just felt like it didn't belong in here. So 3 out of 5 stars. I still really liked it. If you're someone who likes war novels, or you're someone who likes spy novels, or you're someone who likes racial commentary on the United States, then I can highly recommend this book. And then the final book that I finished this month was The Secret Place by Tana French. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I picked up this book because if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you would have seen Tana French has a new book coming out this year, which is super exciting. So once I heard that, I knew that I had to pick this one up, which is her most recent release. I'm actually going to be doing a full review of this one as well because I thought it was really interesting. It's super different from anything else that Tana French has done so far in this series, but I still really, really enjoyed it. I know this one is actually a lot of people's like least favorites, which I can completely understand. It's not like the last 2 books, but I actually didn't like the last 2 books as much. If I had to rank them, The Likeness would probably be my favorite, then maybe The Secret Place, or maybe In the Woods. Those 2 are kind of tied for me, and then after that is sort of like Broken Harbor and Faithful Place. Those 2 I wasn't so crazy about. So this one I really enjoyed. Again, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. If you don't know Tana French's books, she is an Irish author who writes these mystery books that take place in the Dublin Murder Squad, which is not a real thing, but you know, you can figure out what that means. So she follows different detectives in every book, and so in this one you are following Stephen Moran, who is sort of this up-and-comer. He actually works in the cold cases department, I believe, and he wants to join the murder squad. Holly Mackey, who is now 16 years old, comes to him with a clue from an old cold case. Holly Mackey is the daughter of Frank Mackey, who we've read about in the last book, I believe. And so he's able to sort of join in with Detective Antoinette Conway, who was working the case originally, and it ended up just dying out because they couldn't find enough information. So it seems like this clue has come to light and there's a chance that the murder might be solved now. The murder was this teenager who was found dead on this sort of private school campus. I think the reason why I love this book so much is because I really like the way that they described the private school as well as the girls who were in the private school. But yeah, again, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm going to talk about it more in my review because I've so many thoughts on it. It was so good. I loved it. I completely devoured this book. I think that Tana French's strength is honestly the fact that she creates these really interesting characters, and that's what drives me more than the actual mysteries themselves. But I think that in this one the mystery was super interesting. I mean, I'm gonna stop there. I can't get into it without this turning into a 20-minute video, so that's why I'm going to do a full review on this later. In terms of what I am currently reading, I'm currently working my way through Sleeping Giants by Sylvian Neuvel. This is a pretty new release. I believe it just came out in May, and so I got it from the library. I've been hearing really interesting things about it. I am about the halfway point right now, but this is a super fast read, and so it's very likely that before Memorial Day weekend is over, I will be done with this book. This is a science fiction book, and I don't know completely how to describe it just yet because I'm still not 100% sure of what's going on, but the way that this book is written is in a series of interviews and diary entries basically, which makes it a really fast read. If you're interested in hearing more about this book, I'm actually going to leave a link to Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief. She did a review on this really recently that got me really interested in this book. I mean, I was already interested in it. I was already on hold for it, and so I saw her review and she had some pretty positive things to say about it, so I'm going to link to that. And then the other book that I am very slowly going through is the Alexander Hamilton biography by Ron Chernow. I had made it sort of a resolution that before I go see Hamilton, I wanted to read the biography. So I basically got on the hold list for the ebook, but I finally got the library ebook. But the unfortunate thing is that I know for a fact I'm not going to finish this before the library hold is over, so there's a very good chance I'm just going to end up buying the ebook. So I might be reading this biography for like the entire summer, which I'm kind of okay with because it's an enjoyable read, and that's kind of just how I do biographies in general. I usually take them really slow. If I try to push myself too hard, I end up sort of just skimming the books, and that's never really what I want to be doing with biographies. So there's a chance that at the end of every wrap-up, I'm just going to have a status update on the Hamilton biography. Just be reading it all summer long. So yeah, that was my May. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you've read any of these books or if you have any questions about any of these books. Again, I'm going to be doing reviews on Homegoing and The Secret Place. If you have any questions on those, maybe wait a little bit until you see my review. If you have any questions on the other books that I read, The Gene or The Sympathizer, leave those down in the comment section definitely. Or if you have any comments of your own, if you've read any of these, if you want to tell me if you liked them or didn't like them for any reason, you can always leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.